Today on Milk Street, we're here in Madrid to do something, well, kind of crazy. We're meeting with two very famous chefs, but they're known for their fusion cooking, and we're going to ask them to do something traditional, something that actually translates well to America. Now, the first is Abraham Garcia. He's going to make carcamuses. That's essentially a stew with 3 different kinds of meat made in a skillet in just half an hour. The next guy is Joaquin Felipe. He's going to do a pisto, a ratatouille, but in the Spanish style. So these are 2 great dishes, classic dishes by famous fusion cooks, but things you can do at home in under 30 minutes. So please stay tuned.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Ferguson's proud to support Milk Street and culinary crusaders everywhere. For more information on our extensive collection of kitchen products, we're on the web at fergusonshowrooms.com.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect. We offer a variety of no-contract plans, and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Cooking happens in the kitchen, but life happens around the kitchen table. The 1919 collection, celebrating yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Visit us at www.1919cookware.com.
Madrid is modern, it's old, it's busy, it's quiet, it's the home of Spanish fusion cooking. But in December, Madrid is really about the streets. Everyone comes out to celebrate the upcoming holidays, many wearing silly Christmas hats, others dressed as Santa Claus, and the packed squares are teeming with kids. For the food, we ordered a bocadillo de calamares, fried squid sandwiches served with beer, and in the evening, vermouth bars such as Casa Camacho, where we started with a plate of green olives and a yayo. That's a cocktail of gin, sparkling water, and sweet vermouth. But the main attraction was Abraham Garcia's Viridiana, named after a 1961 Louis Buñuel movie of the same name. Garcia is a Renaissance man. When asked about the menu for his last meal, he replied, quote, "One should always go into the unknown on an empty stomach." I caught up with Abraham at his restaurant for dinner, and then we showed up the next day for a cooking lesson. Today we're making carcamuses, which is a tapas dish of mixed meats.
Poquito pimentón picante.
Notice that he's using just a spoon to mix everything up. And he had a very simple knife for doing the garlic and onion, nothing fancy, which means he's a real chef.
El chorizo. Quizá porque venimos lo hemos ido olvidando de
Abraham just told the story of the basics of Spanish cooking, which is to take very simple ingredients and to transform them into something extraordinary. And the example he used was a poor woman on the streets being transformed into a princess, which is what we're doing with carcamuses.
Una impecable salsa de tomate.
So the key technique, he's essentially stewing in a skillet, which is a really great technique to take home to Milk Street.
Dije antes de cuán versátil podría ser el plato, ¿no? Los múltiples usos.
The chefs just pointed out that you could serve this obviously at the tapas bar, but also it's great with rice, it's great with mashed potatoes. It's versatile. This is every man's food. It's for the rich, it's for the poor. It's not just fancy food, it's not gourmet food.
Bien, adelante.
This was cooked in about half an hour in a skillet. It tastes like a stew that took all day to cook. It has just an amazing amount of flavor. Delicious. He's a genius. Now, during my trip to Madrid, I met Abraham Garcia of Viridiana, and I really fell in love with this guy because his comment about horses was he doesn't understand horses because they prefer barley to whiskey. And my comment was, I prefer to ride a horse that eats barley instead of drinking whiskey. Anyway, he did teach me a number of things about cooking, and the recipe here, Carcamusa, is one of those recipes, which is if you start with big flavor, the cooking doesn't take a long time. So this recipe, which is really a tapas recipe, which you can also use as dinner, starts with big flavors.
That's right. So the flavors here typically are 3 different types of pork: fresh pork, Spanish chorizo, and cured ham. We can get that here imported, and it's great, but it's super expensive. So we wanted to try to do this recipe with just fresh pork and Spanish chorizo. So to start with, we have 1 1/4 pound pork tenderloin. We're gonna cut it down into bite-sized pieces. So we're just gonna set that aside, and we're gonna move on to our second type of pork, and that's Spanish chorizo, and that's a dry cured sausage. You don't want to substitute Mexican chorizo. It's like an Italian sausage link. If you cut this open, it would be ground up. This is really sliceable. We like the loop style. It tends to be more reliable. So
Well, I always like a reliable sausage. It's the one I can really trust.
reliable quality.
Okay.
So now we're gonna start to build some flavor. So we have 6 ounces of Spanish chorizo. I'm only gonna use half of that here, and then 8 cloves of garlic, 2½ teaspoons of oregano, 2½ teaspoons of ground cumin, and then I took a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes and I drained off the juice. We're gonna use the tomatoes later, but for now, we're gonna use some of this juice to make a chorizo paste. So this is 3 tablespoons. So we're just gonna turn this on and let this go for about 2 minutes until it's smooth. Okay, Chris, I'm gonna actually take 3 tablespoons of this and add it to our fresh pork. So like I said, we're taking a lot of these bold flavors and really maximizing them. So I have a teaspoon of salt, and then we're gonna add 1 more tablespoon of this drained tomato juice. So this is sort of like a marinade.
It's a pastorade.
It's a pastorade. We've created a new thing.
That's amazing.
All right, so Chris, this is gonna sit just at room temperature for about 15 minutes.
Okay.
So Chris, we're gonna use this chorizo paste that we made earlier as the base of our tomato sauce. I'm gonna take those drained tomatoes and we're gonna process this for just about a minute till it's almost smooth. All right, so this is just about smooth, and we're gonna set this aside, and we're gonna cook the pork. We're gonna add a tablespoon of oil, heat that over medium-high until it's just smoking. So our oil's nice and hot, and I'm gonna add the pork. You wanna make sure this is in an even layer here, so all of the pork gets some browning.
Man, that smells good.
You can smell the chorizo on there. So we're just gonna cook this for 4 to 6 minutes. We're just trying to get browning on one side. It's probably gonna be almost cooked through by the end of that cooking time. All right, Chris, so these are brown underneath, and I'm gonna transfer this into a bowl. And so I'm just gonna add 2 tablespoons of oil, and this is 1 large onion that we've finely chopped. We're gonna put this over medium heat, and we're actually gonna cover it. This is gonna speed up the cooking of the onions, and also will ensure that none of that flavor that's stuck on the pan is gonna burn. So Chris, the onions have been cooking for about 8 minutes. They're nice and soft. And now we're gonna deglaze the pan. And we're gonna add a 1/2 cup of dry sherry. And we're gonna cook this until this is almost evaporated, about 2 to 4 minutes. And when you do that, you wanna scrape up some of those brown bits on the bottom. You wanna make sure, obviously, that you get dry sherry, not sweet sherry. Definitely don't buy cooking sherry. That's in the supermarket. It's really, really salty.
Well, that's the garbage that they can't sell anywhere else. They just
Right.
call cooking sherry. Right.
This is the remaining juices from that can of tomatoes. And then I'm going to add that super flavorful tomato sauce that we made with the chorizo paste to really boost the flavor of this dish. I'm gonna reduce this down to medium-low and cover it, let it cook for 10 minutes. Those flavors are gonna simmer in there and really melt. So I let our sauce cook for 10 minutes covered. Took the cover off for 5 more minutes so that the sauce could reduce and thicken. Now we're gonna add the pork back in, and then the remaining chorizo. And this is 1 jar of piquillo peppers that we chopped up into bite-sized pieces. If you can't find piquillo peppers, that's a Spanish meaty red pepper, use a roasted red pepper, jarred roasted red peppers.
But if they're packed in oil, you want to pat them dry and get rid of the oil?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Drain them if they're packed in any sort of liquid. We're gonna heat this through for 5 minutes just to make sure that that pork is fully cooked before we serve it.
Okay.
I'm going to turn the heat off, and this is a cup of chopped parsley that we're gonna add here. All right, so let's eat this. Thank you.
Boy, that really,
You can smell the
Yeah.
chorizo, so you know it's really flavorful. And we have some toasted baguette here you can eat with this if you want.
no, I'm just going to,
You're just gonna
I can get more of it in my
go
mouth faster with a
That's
fork than a
true,
piece
that's
of bread.
true.
And it has more flavor than a traditional beef stew.
Right.
Because you have so many strong ingredients. So we learned a lot from Abraham Garcia, especially how to make a stew in a skillet in less than half an hour. You start with big flavor. The cooking really isn't that important. So carcamusas, which was originally a tapas dish, actually makes a great supper any day of the week. It's absolutely delicious. French toast is not what we think of as French toast. It's pain perdu, which means lost bread, which means stale bread. And they used to simply soak it in a liquid like milk, and then they would cook it off. And very often it was actually fried. Well, the eggs came later, and sort of the Americanization of it, where we cook it like pancakes on a griddle. But we thought we would go to Spain, where they make Spanish toast, tortillas. And that's actually a little more interesting, because the flavor's more interesting. And this is a dessert, this is not breakfast. So tell me about tortillas.
Well, first off, speak for yourself. I've definitely eaten these tortillas for breakfast. This bowl is filled with 1 cup of dry sherry. We love using dry sherry in this instance because it gives this subtle nuttiness and caramel undertone that contrasts the 1/4 cup of orange juice that we're also putting in here. To that, we'll also throw in 1 teaspoon of orange zest, along with the sweetness, a full cup of powdered sugar. And once this is well mixed, we'll pour it over our bread here. Now, we want to make sure we're using fresh challah for this recipe. We'll soak all of our slices of challah in our sherry mixture here, and we'll let that sit for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and create a sugar mixture to not only season this dish, but finish it off as well. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar, along with another teaspoon of orange zest, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cloves. So we'll combine everything together. Now that we have that all set, we could go ahead and make some of our batter. Now, I did not wash the bowl that we had all that sherry mixture in. We're actually going to utilize a little bit of that combination to mix into our eggs. Here I have 4 large eggs, along with 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. And finally, we'll add 1 tablespoon of that sugar mixture, layers of flavor. I'll go ahead and mix this up, being sure to break up the yolks as I go. We'll get to this batter in just a minute. These pieces of bread have been sitting for about 5 minutes. They've taken up some of that sherry mixture, so we just want to give them a flip and make sure that all sides are coated in sherry. So in a large 12-inch skillet, we've set about 1/2 cup vegetable oil, and if you wouldn't mind bringing that up to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now our bread has been sitting for about 5 minutes, and we'll coat it in that batter that we created earlier. Now that each piece of our tortillas have been covered in the batter, we could go ahead and start frying. And I'm going to cook 1/2 of our tortillas for the first batch, just so that way we don't overcrowd the pan and run the risk of losing that crust that we want. And we'll let those cook for about a minute on that side. Be sure to keep them separate unless you want a double serving.
Yeah, who'd want a double serving of this? Ooh.
Yeah. Now that these have fried, we'll go ahead and transfer them onto a cooling rack, just to allow that excess oil to drip off. That one's mine, I'm calling it right now. I'll go ahead and continue to cook the remainder of our tortillas, but these are going to go into the oven that's set somewhere around 350 degrees just to cook them through and warm them up. We'll take each piece, We'll transfer it over to a large plate that we poured the remainder of that sugar mixture into. And we simply nestle it right into the sugar, and you see that it coats the entire piece. Where's that piece that I called?
You mean the biggest one? Is
Yeah, that one right
I can tell,
there.
the thickest, biggest piece. Yeah. Well, you're the cook.
Listen, go big or go home. And this dish makes me feel like I'm at home, so might as well go big.
This looks great. Ooh. The inside of that?
Dreams come true, Chris.
Wow. You know, I'm not as enthusiastic as a person as you are, as you can tell, but I might get as enthusiastic as you about this dish. This has that wonderful sherry, it's got the balance, it has the outside crust, which you only get by frying in oil instead of just cooking it like a pancake. And you might like it for breakfast, but I'll like it any time of day after breakfast. It is really good. Spanish French toast. Ooh. So I'm here with Joaquin Felipe in downtown Madrid, and today we're going to do a pisto, which is essentially a ratatouille, but done in the Spanish style.
El pisto es un plato.
This is a plate originally from the south of Spain, from La Mancha, which would normally use vegetables that are in season.
So every region of Spain might have its own pisto, right?
Yes, and they could have their own version and a different variation of vegetables and herbs.
Bueno, lo más importante.
Most important is the oil.
Vamos cortando toda la.
We start by cutting the vegetables in abrimoise, a small fine dice. You need to caramelize the vegetables in the beginning so it gets like a toasted flavor, different vegetables and colors.
Gente que iba a trabajar al campo.
You cook slowly until it almost gets to the point of a puree, but the vegetables have each still got their own shape, form, and texture. And now we're going to add the eggplant or the aubergine, and we're going to fry it first.
Que siempre procuramos en este tipo de pistos.
We're practically using the same percentage of each vegetable. As much onion as zucchini, as peppers.
El ajo sería siempre un poquito menos, por la mitad.
And of course a little less garlic.
Y ahora lo más importante, ahora ya lo
Now the most important part is the cooking process, slow and slow, 30-35 minutes.
He only fried the zucchini for like 2 or 3 minutes, very quick.
Yeah.
And that was so the zucchini didn't just dissolve when it was cooked.
Exactly.
Pues bueno, después de pasar eso.
So after the 30-35 minutes cooking time, here we've got a vegetable stew. It's been stewed down a bit, and you could use this for whatever you'd like, as a garnish for meat, fish. This is a plate you could eat pretty much at any time. It's very nutritious.
So I feel a little bad about eating this because it looks so good. It's really rich tasting. It's not just some vegetables. It has it's almost like a meat stew. It has that depth of flavor. This is fabulous. Joaquin, Sean, just terrific job. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
I like surprises. Well, most surprises, but when I was in Madrid not too long ago, I stopped by the Florida Retiro restaurant. The chef, Joaquin Felipe, made the simplest of dishes. We thought we'd just bring that back here. So tell us about pisto.
Pisto manchego, we've been calling it in-house kind of the Spanish ratatouille, which isn't totally fair, but many of the countries around the Mediterranean have a similar summer vegetable dish. So Chris, I'm going to ask you to please heat 6 tablespoons of olive oil on medium-high in our Dutch oven. While our oil is heating, we're going to move on to our eggplant. I'm using 2 8-ounce eggplants, and these are Chinese or Japanese eggplants, which are the longer, thinner ones. So I've cut them into 1-inch cubes. I'm going to season my eggplant with a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of black pepper. And our oil is ready. Now I want to get my eggplant in one layer and let them cook undisturbed for 3 to 5 minutes. I have 1 12-ounce zucchini, and we're going to top and tail What we want to do is cut this into planks and take out the seedy core, because that turns to mush, and that is not a texture we find particularly appealing. And so by cutting it in this way, we have a neat way to take out the bulk of our problems. I'm going to go on to cut this into 1/2-inch pieces. So these have started to brown. So I'm going to turn the heat down to medium, and we're going to stir them now, and we're going to cover it and let it continue cooking for another 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, let's check on our eggplant. That's looking great, and I'm ready to move them into a medium bowl lined with paper towels. These are done. We're going to set these aside and move on to our zucchini, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to transfer my zucchini. So this is going to need about 4 minutes undisturbed to develop some lovely color, and then I'm going to stir it for another couple minutes to make sure it's cooked all the way through. So Chris, our zucchini and eggplant are done. We're going to move on. I'm going to heat 1 tablespoon of olive oil on medium-high. To the oil, I'm going to add 1 large yellow onion that I have quartered lengthwise and sliced thinly. A 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and it gets a quick stir. And that's going to cook for 3 to 5 minutes. So in this recipe, we use 2 medium bell peppers, and I know you're dying to show off a trick you learned about cutting peppers from Joaquin.
I watched Joaquin cook, and he took a pepper like this. He just did a little cut on the side, took another cut here, very simple, and the entire center goes away. So now all you have to do is...
You are useful.
Was that a note of like surprise in your voice? I don't know. I take out the garbage too. I do all sorts of great stuff.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So our pepper is cut and ready. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. That's starting to look quite pretty. So our peppers are in, and they're going to cook for 3 to 5 minutes covered on medium-high until they're softened.
Okay.
Now I'm going to add in 8 cloves of garlic that have been thinly sliced. I have 3/4 teaspoon of ground cumin, and we also liked 1.5 teaspoons of dried oregano. Now the original recipe often will use fresh thyme, but this is now an anytime recipe.
Was that a little joke?
That was a pun.
Okay, sorry.
30 seconds, just until it's fragrant, and then 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes along with their juice. So I'm going to cover and let this cook for 5 to 7 minutes until it's reduced down. We're going to add in our zucchini and eggplant. This is going to cook for just a minute or 2 more until all the vegetables are heated through and the flavors are melded nicely. I'm going to finish this with a 1/4 cup chopped fresh flat leaf parsley. It's nice to have a little fresh herb at the end. Your favorite part.
Always my favorite part right now. It does look pretty, I'm saying.
It is a pretty dish.
Thank you.
Just a minute. I know, but I'm such a
The
tease.
Manchego cheese.
The Manchego of Pisto Manchego is Manchego cheese. Large shavings and some crusty bread.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're ready.
Enjoy. Or buon appetito.
This still has texture.
It didn't get all mushed down.
Very fresh, good texture, nice and bright. So Pisto Manchego is really about simplicity. Textures, flavors, colors. It's fresh, but it's about simplicity. So if you want a vegetable stew or if you want ratatouille, that's fine. But if you want something really special, Pisto Manchego is really great. You can get this recipe, all the recipes from the season of Milk Street at milkstreettv.com.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Ferguson's proud to support Milk Street and culinary crusaders everywhere. For more information on our extensive collection of kitchen products, we're on the web at fergusonshowrooms.com.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular has been offering no-contract wireless plans designed to help people do more of what they like. Our U.S.-based customer service team can help find a plan that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Cooking happens in the kitchen, but life happens around the kitchen table. The 1919 collection, celebrating yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Visit us at www.1919cookware.com.
So here's the menu. Churro first, and then squid sandwich. It's hot, it's crispy, it's delicious. Pretty good. Good.